Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bundesliga show, brought to you by Over the Bar. Checking in for our second show of the 2024-25 season. Although we're calling it pre-season, it's all pre-season content at the moment. What should be a really great show tonight. We're introducing you all to our two new teams for this season in FC St. Pauli and Holstein Kiel. Before we get into any of that, though, good evening and welcome back to Peter. How are you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing great, Rory. It's such a pleasure to see you again. I'm looking forward to another great season here at Over the Bar. And wow, I didn't even realize how cool that new intro is. That is really, really cool stuff. You guys have done a fantastic job, as usual, with that over the course of the summer.
Well, I can't take any credit for it. It's all Paul, who's done an excellent job, who always helps us out with these things. So yeah, well done, and thanks as ever, Paul. So just before we get into the show this evening, a few little bits of admin as per usual. Of course, we're not just a YouTube channel. We're on all good audio platforms. So if you choose to absorb your podcasts or your German football content that way, let us know, leave a rating and leave a review. Of course, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you leave a like, thumbs up, comment along. It'd be great to get some St. Pauli and Holstein Kiel fans and people get involved in that sense. We really want to reach out and, if we could get some guests on that, that'd be also fantastic. Subscribe and turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on anything going forwards. Big nod to our two partners again ahead of this new season. Of course, Bully News, who we're very excited to be working with once more. Loads of content in regards to fantasy football, especially for us, that we'll be digging into in the coming weeks. And of course, the brilliant Bundesliga boxes. We spoke about this neat little secret link that we've got you all for exclusive viewers of the show. That secret link is not in this description video, but we can amend it and we will. But if you want to go get yourself an early Bundesliga bot from batch 43, head over to our season preview, our big prediction show, which obviously you can find on the channel. It's in the description. Click on the link and you can get in there early. And there's not forgetting that we're still running the giveaway on X, aka Twitter. That is the pinned tweet on the Over the Bar page. Just follow all the instructions in terms of getting yourself a valid entry. And you've got yourself a chance at winning a Bundesliga box for batch 43 as well. Treating you all so much early on this season. So much great stuff that's going on. But talking of great stuff, we've got to get stuck into the show without further delay. We're going to kick off with, the first of our two new teams in the shape of St. Pauli. And St. Pauli are not complete newcomers to the Bundesliga. Of course, they have been in the top German division, as formed as the Bundesliga. That is, only about 10 years or so ago, they've been a bit yo-yoing here and there. So what we'll do is we'll kind of give them a bit of an intro, just to give you a bit of a flavour, and then me and Pete will kind of discuss them a little bit more, the culture of the club, their ethos, bit of background, and bits and bobs like that. And then a little bit for both teams, we'll say a bit of what we expect from them this season, their goals, their ambitions, etc. So this is where I kind of relate back to my basic research. Obviously, St. Pauli were founded many years ago, back in 1910. Of course, that's when the football department was established in organised competitions, I'm led to believe. They play at the Millentor Stadion, which, Peter, is a capacity of nearly 30,000. So compared to some of our more recently promoted sides, the likes of Darmstadt, Heidenheim, and of course Kiel themselves, that's a big stadium, isn't it?
It is indeed, and the atmosphere is incredible. The culture of the club, as you probably know from your research, is that of a punk rock identity and ultra left-wing politics. Mark and I, of course, in one of our vlogs, took everybody to the krautrock capital at one point. So we took them to Düsseldorf with a rock-themed vlog. hopefully we'll be making it to the Midland Tour this season so that we can show you how punk rock football in Germany works like Düsseldorf, but to the power of 10, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it will fill every single home game without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, they've got a couple of different nicknames, and obviously they play. Their home colours are usually the brown, the colour that we're all associated with Pauli. Known as either the and Peter can correct me here on my German, which no doubt he'll do. The Kai's kicker, obviously the Kai's part of that nickname comes from the neighborhood of Hamburg in which the club is based, or the League Buccaneers, so Freibuter der Liga. So yeah, the League Buccaneers is also one. And then yeah, as a bit of a background, of course, we know that they have a bit of a huge cross-city rivalry with Hamburg, who didn't join us once more in the top league. And that's a really well-established one. More casual followers of German football will probably relate more to Hamburg as a team that are well known. But St. Pauli have this kind of, certainly in Germany and more so now across the world, have got this kind of cult club status, as you've already alluded to there, Peter, in terms of being identified for their strong support of political views like left-wing stuff. And like most football teams or associations in Germany, obviously St. Pauli Football Club or department is part of the large sports club that has different departments like rugby teams, handball teams, etc. So they're not any different in that sense of the word. Just a bit of an overall kind of picture as to who St. Pauli are from a kind of major honours point of view. Their kind of list is slightly shorter, shall we say? It's not a hugely established club in terms of what they've won. I think they've got the two Bundesliga, obviously champions last season, and back like in the 70s, I think it was, and a few runners-up titles for the second division as well. So before we dive more into the culture of the club, because I think that will be quite an interesting part of St. Pauli particularly. Let's have a little word about the new man in post, the head coach Alexander Blessing, because he's had to come in fairly last minute, Peter, because of the changes in the summer. For those of you that don't know, the St. Pauli head coach, you probably will know because we've got a lot of English followers, joined Brighton in the summer, obviously in the shape of Fabian Hürzeler. And that was a big loss. We'll talk about, the playing squad in a little while. But do you want to just kind of introduce the new man in the hot seat, because he's a Stuttgart native? I've learned, so I'm already a big fan of him. And he started his coaching career in the RB setup as well through the youth teams, I believe. So an interesting setup to get himself going. Had a bit of a rough time of it in Italy when he was coaching in Genoa, but then he had a good spell. Most recently, he's had a good time of it in Belgium, full stop. But most recently, he was managing Union Saint-Gilloise, and won the Belgian Cup, for example, for the first time in over 100 years. So he comes with a decent CV. What can St. Pauli be? St. Pauli fans and followers of the league be expecting to see from the new man in post? Has he got a big job? I think he does have a big job on hand for him, doesn't he?
Before we dive into that, may I deliver the promised of German corrections very quickly?
Please do. Absolutely.
It is the Kiez kicker, not the kites kicker.
Okay.
For those who are interested in learning a little bit of German, it's very, very easy. Whenever you have the IE or the EI combination, pronounce the second vowel. So that's how you do it. And yes, the Kiez kicker just means the neighborhood kicker. Die Freibeuter der Liga, or the Buccaneers of the league. That nickname is not the most popular for the club. They're oftentimes referred to as just einfach die Piraten, the pirates. They have a Jolly Roger as their
They do.
the skull and crossbones as their flag, and they're very much into. It can get a little ridiculous sometimes in left-wing politics, because it's sometimes just I'm against whatever it is you're for, like that old Die Ärzte song, Ich bin dagegen, I'm against. But in any event, I'll now get over to your question, of course, and beginning with the new trainer, the new head coach, I should say, for in English parlance, Alexander Blessen. Well, this is, at the age of 51, his first gig, his actual first job coaching a top-tier German football team. He was in the RB Leipzig system, and this was during the time that Ralf Rangnick was building up RB Leipzig, so he's had some very, very good mentors.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, he had success in Belgium with Union Saint-Gilloise, also with Oostende.
Mm-hmm.
And now we'll talk a little bit about the job that he has ahead of him. Actually, they have played an excellent preseason. St. Pauli have. They've only lost one of their test fixtures. That was to Spielvereinigung Greuther Fürth in mid-July. The other ones they've won. They've beaten Olympique Lyon, they've beaten Norwich City, and they've even beaten Atalanta Bergamo in their preseason fixtures. And I'm going to tell you why I believe that, in a broad sense, I'll tell you why I believe that St. Pauli are excellent contenders to retain the class this year and maybe avoid relegation. So I'll give you the broad strokes, basically, and then Rory, please feel free to ask me some more specific questions if there's something that you're interested in. I think most importantly, we'll take a look at the summer transfers. They lost their leading goal scorer, Marcel Halter, who went ahead, a German veteran. He decided that he would go to St. Louis to play under Lutz Pfannenstiel, and he will continue his career, his semi-retirement in the MLS. But let's take a look at who they've gotten. They have Robert Wagner, who spent last season playing for Greuther Fürth. As a matter of fact, Mark and I attended many Greuther Fürth matches, so we got a chance to see him in person. He's a very, very promising German youth international who is an attack-minded midfielder, an excellent get. I'm very, very excited to see this. This is a little bit of a sentimental thing when it comes to German football fandom, but Joshua Guilevogie, Wolfsburg's former captain, their younger brother Morgan, his younger brother Morgan has been brought in from Lens and did not have a bad season. We have two UK additions, Scott Banks, the Scotsman. If Germans learned anything from the Scots in the most recent Euros, and we learned quite a bit, it's that, of course, no Scotland, no party. He was on loan from Palace, and he was injured, unfortunately, had a season-ending knee injury 3 matches in. But they deemed him worthy of signing permanently, so he's an attacker that I'm interested to get a look at as well. And then we also have the Welshman, Stevens, who I don't know too much about, but a solid acquisition, Finn Stevens, for the right-back role. So they've lost Hartl, but they still have a lot of they still have a lot of actors on this team that can score goals. Wagner is going to contribute his fair share. Johannes Eggestein, the younger brother of former SV Werder Bremen, current SC Freiburg midfielder Maximilian Eggestein, in 9 goals in the second division last season. He was once considered quite the hot prospect. He and his brother, when he was playing for Bremen, he was once a 10 million valued player. We have a strong captain in the form of Jackson Irvine. Talking about cult figures, he has Scottish heritage as well, but he captains the Australia national football team. And together with his Australian colleague Connor Metcalf, last season, both of them contributed very, very strong seasons. Metcalf chipping in 3 goals, Jackson, or Irvine, I should say, contributing in 6. They grew a pair of Uwe Seeler German national team style mustaches, and took Metcalf didn't play much in the AFC Cup, but Jackson Irvine, the Aussie captain, helped them get to the quarterfinals last January. So we have a good foundation. We have some good additions. Rory, I suppose you'd like to add something at this point. And as I said, if you're interested in one topic or another, I can happily delve into further detail if you have some detailed questions.
Yeah, I think just from a player pool squad point of view, and what we might now see in this upcoming season, I think what people will be absolutely interested in will be how will St. Pauli approach it. I think we can guess about what their season aspirations and goals will be, but obviously what I'm trying to get around is will the plans be thrown up in the air by the departure, obviously, of their former head coach who's now at Brighton, or will Blessing have his own style that he'll implement onto Pauli for this season? Are we going to see a Heidenheim approach of high entertainment, high goals at both ends, or will we see a more reserved Darmstadt, Bolcom style of, be strong at home and maybe less thrills? So what are we going to maybe see from them this season, Peter?
Well, I'm anticipating a back three, and the reason for that is that they have strong leadership at the back. Karel Metz, who is the Estonian international, I should say, Eric Smith. Kind of odd that a man named Eric Smith is Swedish, but it happens. And also a Hauke Vaz. So I think we're going to see a back three from them. And then Irvine and Metcalf will work together in the midfield. Irvine potentially as a sweeper. Wagner moving sort of up front a little bit. They have some wingbacks that can be deployed up high in the form of Philip Troy and also this Saliakis, the Greek international. I was really anxious to get a look at him when I visited Gladbach for the German national team tune-up, but he unfortunately didn't play. And then as to who the two strikers are going to be, it's probably going to be Eggestein and Guilavogi. That would be my estimation. There's another guy, an English guy that I'd never heard of, Oladapo Afolayan. As I said, I never heard of him before. I think he scored 9 goals in the second division last year, but is totally untested at this level. Mm-hmm. So I think that you are going to see a very, very attack-minded approach, probably a 3-5-2. And if you're asking the question, which team has the better chance of being this season's Heidenheim, St. Pauli is the definite tip. They have stronger chances of maintaining class. Of course, recommend to all viewers that they check out your previous show from earlier, in which you guys made your own predictions about Pauli and whether or not they could maintain the class, and who will factor into the relegation race this year. Of course, this year, generally speaking, we have to keep in mind that we have this new European format and all of these German teams in Europe. So we're going to have a lot of exhausted teams and a lot of exhausted football from the European qualified teams, which gives a club like this, which has a solid foundation, an excellent chance of making up ground in the league every week. So I do think that Blessen is not afraid. He's buoyed by this excellent preseason. And we're going to have some really, really rocking Saturday and Sunday afternoons at the Millentor. Hopefully a couple of Friday night matches as well. We'll see how the Bundesliga schedulers work that out. And yes, that will be Mark and I's top priority to go there and show everybody the atmosphere. But I think they do it. I really think that they maintain the class with some excellent, no holds barred, no fear attacking football. And good on them. Great news. Their last day in the league, as you alluded to in your introduction, was far too brief. They were only here for one season. That was 2010-11. And we only got one season of the great Hamburg Stadt Derby in the top flight. And we're not going to get that this year because HSV can't. They can't. But that was, that was a great season. They beat HSV for the first time since the 70s. And even though they finished dead last in the league that year, they really had some great memorable highlights for us. So yes, you can look forward. Check out St. Pauli. All the viewers should check out St. Pauli beginning on opening weekend, and they're a good tip to maintain a league if you can orchestrate a prop bet on that line.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and good segue into the prediction show, which obviously me and Mark did last week. I mean, slight spoiler, I was more optimistic about St. Pauli than Mark was, and then Mark talked me out of it. So yeah, anyway, go check it out and see what our thoughts were on obviously the relegation race and how we see that. That's obviously on the channel ready to go. Before we move on and start talking about Kiel, I obviously again, I just want to give a bit more of a nod to obviously the St. Pauli kind of ethos and how they are this culture club. We've already mentioned a few little bits about it. And Peter, you'll know this a lot better than me. One thing I found really interesting when reading up on this a little bit more was about how they became the first club in Germany to adopt principles via the club's AGM, and so they're all kind of like noted down. And so one of them I picked out, which is a direct quote, is that tolerance and respect in mutual human relations are important pillars of the St. Pauli philosophy. So yeah, some really interesting stuff from there that I found quite wholesome, and they have become quite well-known club across Europe, particularly. Have you just got any passing thoughts that you'd like to kind of highlight from a St. Pauli point of view that people should be aware of, or that kind of link in with why their popularity is really spread across, nationally and globally as well?
Well, I would point out that the vast majority of West German clubs are known for their progressive politics. To take an example, the 2015 decision by Chancellor Angela Merkel to allow refugees into the country sparked a lot of positive anti-hate protests across the West German clubs, including the Welcome Refugees movement, which was not just about holding up banners in the stadium. It was also about, helping refugees who were settled into the various communities get jobs, get good schooling, get good housing, become integrated into the German community. St. Pauli, it depends on who you talk to. A lot of supporters of the club will say that they led the way in this respect, and supporters of other clubs in the league will say that they led the way in this respect. But in a general sense, politics and football are, of course, intertwined in German culture. And it's not just about protest banners within the stands during the stadiums. It's also about social progress movements and civic engagement outside of the stadium, whether it's accepting donations for local charities, whether it's signing up to do volunteer work in the community or for the club, for that matter. There's also, when the Ukraine war first started, pretty much all of the West German clubs had food drives in which people would donate not just money, but also canned goods. And those would be driven to the border by club volunteers to help refugees, to make sure that refugees are well fed, clothed, all of these things. St. Pauli is certainly... I would say that in comparison to a lot of the West German clubs, they are much more concerned with civic drives than some of the other ones that you'll find in North Rhine-Westphalia and Baden-Württemberg and so on and so forth. But all German clubs are like that. So it's not that one club is better than the other when it comes to these sort of things. Pretty much all West German clubs take a principled stance on football and politics, and they do so every week. And that's another huge reason why. Please everyone come to the Bundesrepublik and experience it for yourself. When I'm away from Germany, as I am right now for too long, I get so sad. But yes, come experience how our football culture works. And, St. Pauli will give you everything that you need to know. If you go to the Milan tour, don't even need tickets, just walk around the stadium. for 2 or 3 hours before kickoff and see what kind of volunteer work they're doing outside of the stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a very welcome back to the Bundesliga for St. Pauli. So next up are complete newcomers to the division, to the top table of German football in the shape of Holstein Kiel. They've been flirting with the top table for a little while now, but they have finally made it. So again, just give a little bit of a brief intro as to some basics about the club, and then again we'll kind of just get into them a little bit more. Again about the squad and maybe their goals and aspirations as well. And again, I want to talk a little bit about the head coach also. So Kiel again, as they're now known as a current organisation, were founded in 1917. The ground, as we've already mentioned, is the Holstein Stadion with a capacity of 15,000. That has been the stadium has been renovated a number of times. Most recently back in 2019. And there are still more plans to increase that capacity up to 22,000 by 2026. Their nickname is the Storks or Die Storker. So that's how they're known as well. Some other kind of little bits from an honours point of view. Kiel are an interesting one because, again, Peter, you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong here from my history books. But they were quite the big side, shall we say? I don't want to say powerhouse, probably the wrong word, but they do have a national German title to their name, which they won in 1912. They were runners-up twice in 1910 and 1930 as well. They've got, German Cup semi-final appearances. Obviously, one really recently back in 2021. They had a great run. And amazingly for Kiel as well, one thing that really stood out for me is that, and one thing that I hadn't realised with them, that they were as low as the Regionalliga Nord back in 2012, 2013, which is quite staggering, to be honest. The rise and the excellent progress that they've made through the divisions to get up to this point. Some notable former players that I wanted to shout out were some interesting ones that had played for Kiel. So we've got Sally Özcan, obviously the current Borussia Dortmund midfielder, Jason Lee, who's obviously at Mainz, VfB's finest, Atakan Karatsor, and even Werder's Marvin Duschk have all sported the Holstein Kiel colours for a little while. A bit of an introduction to the side there. And again, I just now want to kind of give a bit of an overview of the squad and the head coach for what it's worth, where I'll kind of, again, introduce the head coach and kind of hand over to you with a bit of a leading question, Peter, and how you see things and what we might see from Kiel from a playing point of view. Right now, the head coach is Marcel Rapp. His kind of background is that he worked his way through the Hoffenheim system. Rapp took over from Dominenko Tedesco actually in the youth setup. So again, some former buddies that we all know from this show. He had a bit of a caretaker role with two other chaps for a short time in Hoffenheim, which got him going at the beginning of his career, and Rapp took over as Kiel head coach back in October 2021. He basically came in after the resignation of Oli Werner, who again we know. So lots of different names that are quite familiar to us, but Rapp is definitely one that I don't know, obviously, apart from doing my research, basically. And he's obviously made amazing progress since being in role and finally clinching the top two finish to get Kiel into the promised land of the Bundesliga. What do you know about the man, Peter, and what can we expect from his side going forwards?
Well, I do have a few historical corrections to make first, and I want to begin actually with a personal anecdote. My father had a visiting professorship in Kiel, and I went to go visit him one summer when I was a young lad, and I might have been 11 years old or so. And I asked him whether or not we could go to a football match, and his response was that there is no football club in Kiel. And then when I visited as an adult, I asked people around. I was like, who's excited about going to see Holstein Kiel? Since then, I'd figured out there actually was a club there, and most people kind of laughed. I mean, this club was the laughing stock of the city for a long time. I mean, when you get that far north, it's more about handball than it is football. So we're playing with different limbs up there. But times have changed. Holstein Kiel are now in the Bundesliga for the first time ever. And they are actually, since the formation of the modern Bundesliga, the first club to represent the small state of Schleswig-Holstein up north there. Rune, my Bully News colleague, can give you maybe a little bit of a better historical background on why Schleswig-Holstein belongs to Germany and not to Denmark. But it has gone back and forth a little bit. So we'll talk a little bit about Marcel Rapp, and I actually appreciate you shouting out some of the former players, some of the players who represented this club, because this club was built by such players, and I think you covered pretty much all of them. Marvin Duksch also played for Kiel for a little bit of a time. I think that's the only one that I didn't hear. But Rapp is a good coach who has got some problems because we have the inverse of what's going on with St. Pauli. St. Pauli has played an excellent preseason. Kiel have been in rather big trouble. I believe they won one test fixture against a Danish side that they had organized a friendly with, not even a real professional Danish side. But apart from that, they lost to my hometown club of Kaiserslautern. They lost to Gladbach. They lost to Mainz, and they also lost to AS Saint-Étienne. Rather ambitious set of test fixtures that they put together. So
why not?
Yeah, that into mind. But Rapp is, of course, this is just like Blessen. This is his first top tier training gig. He was the caretaker trainer for Hoffenheim very briefly in 2020. He also ran the Hoffenheim Academy, has experience under Ralf Rangnick, the legendary German head coach, who did his part in building up both Leipzig and Hoffenheim. He is, of course, I remember him as a former Karlsruhe Sportclub player for a little while, and he also played for your great rivals there, the Stuttgarter Kickers.
He did.
Yes, the Pforzheim native, just like Vincenzo Grifo, that little town that's not far from Karlsruhe, where I make my German home base. This team also has to cope with some losses. They have lost captain Philippe Sander to Gladbach. They have sort of gotten rid of a bunch of players who really weren't fit for the top flight. A bunch of attackers like Joshua Mies, Bumuaka Simukala, and a couple of lone players. Niklas Niehoff, they loaned him out to Osnabrück. Icelandic striker Frid Jonsson and things like this. And you think to yourself, okay, it's good they got these guys off the payroll because they're not fit for the German top flight. But when you add it up, these guys actually contributed about 4 goals or so to the Zweite Bundesliga runners-up last season. Stepping into the breach to take over for Sander, we have a familiar name. Any of our English viewers remember Lewis Holtby from the
absolutely
and Fulham days? He is actually the son of an English soldier who was stationed in the English quarter there in Gladbach, and well, they're having difficulty developing a footballing thesis without their captain, with the loss of Tom Rota, who the Borussia Dortmund loanee, played an excellent season. He was returned to Dortmund and then sold to FC Union Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it kind of interesting because when we look at St. Pauli, the prospects are good despite the fact that we don't have a lot of players with direct Bundesliga experience at St. Pauli. I
Sure.
mean, only Robert Wagner, Johannes Eggestein, and the very old striker Simon Zola, who barely featured for them in the second league. He's not going to feature much again this year. So here in Kiel, you have a lot of players that have Bundesliga experience. Jan Fiat Arp, you remember him, the former Bayern prospect, plays for this team. Steven Skripski, who you may remember from Schalke and Düsseldorf, also plays for this team. There's Timo Becker, remember the Schalke defender, he's there. So you have a bunch of players with Bundesliga experience, but it's just not quite coming together for them yet. So here you have the team, ironically enough, another team in blue that looks to suffer the Darmstadt fate, so to speak, because of some of their losses. It's been a very interesting summer transfer window for them. They brought in Timos Toish Pukac, who played for my hometown club, FC Kaiserslautern, last year, and actually had a very, very good season. He garnered, I think, 14 assists, including 3 in the Pokal, and he is supposed to be Tom Watta's replacement. So that's a strong upgrade. They brought in 2 Rostov players who were both playing in Denmark on loan last season, in the form of this Gigovic, and I'm not quite sure it gets, when you're talking about a Norwegian, I'm not quite sure it gets more Norwegian than a guy named Magnus Knudsen.
Yeah, strong name.
So he's in there too. And then they reached into the 4th division to sign Phil Harris, who played for Hamburg. Homburg, excuse me, not Hamburg, last season. And he scored a goal in the Pokal and scored 24 goals in the 4th division, but we'll see what we can do at this level. And Andu Kelati, who played for Hoffenheim in the Regionalliga there, the German 4th tier, who also put in 12 goals or so. But again, we're jumping from 4th division to 1st division. So yeah, what do you think? Are you a little bit down on Kiel as well, Rory, or what are your thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, again, so spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched the prediction show. My kind of table did feature Kiel in 18th place, just again from everything that you've kind of highlighted there. It sounds like it will be a bit, and again, the kind of team that I compared them to was Darmstadt, which kind of seems to be the case again there with what you're describing, Peter. I guess from a season objective point of view, it's like maybe the same as saying Pauli, and maybe it's an easy thing to say just because they're both teams that have been promoted. Can they just take 16th place and just survive through the playoffs? I mean, I'm sure Kiel would be absolutely thrilled with that, as would St. Pauli. How easy it's going to be for both sides, yeah, I have my doubts. And again, go to the prediction show. I'm pushing you there now. I think there's 4 clear candidates who will be down there this season, and there are 2 of them. But yeah, we'll see how we go. Again, their business, like you say, has been as expected from a financial point of view. They can't go out and pluck, £1 million players, £500,000 players, whatever. They have to reach down into the depths of the German football structure, and hopefully these 2nd division, 3rd division, and even 4th division picks can go well. You mentioned quite a few of their key players, the likes of Holtby and co. They seem to have quite an interesting link to Schalke, former Schalke youth players. Another one is their current number 1, Timon Weiner. He's a youth product of Schalke. He's kind of come in and ousted the former number 1. So yeah, I mean, it'll be really interesting to see how they go. Like I said, they've been flirting with getting up to the Bundesliga for a little while. Had a little bit of heartbreak through the playoffs themselves. the second division team has a terribly poor record in the playoffs, which we already know, and Kiel were on the rough side of that when they played Köln in recent times. So it's great to have them up here and see what kind of success they can taste. In front of their fans, like you say, it's really interesting how northern they really are when you put it on the map. And again, which is something I've been learning more about the club. As you say, it doesn't get more northern than that, which is fantastic. New additions to the Bundesliga is great. That's why we kind of do these profiles to introduce them to the league, and it helps us get to know them a little bit more as well. And as the weeks go on, early on in the season, we'll find out more about what their style of play will be. And just very quickly on that, Peter, before we finish up talking about Kiel, we talked about the head coach, we talked about the squad, a little bit about their history and everything that they're about. Versus St. Pauli, then, from a comparison point of view, what we're going to see style of play wise. I know it sounds like they have had a struggle preseason wise. So are they still putting the pieces of the puzzle together from a tactical point of view?
Yes. Ironically, I did scout some of their matches, and they are also playing a back three. And they have good defenders in the form of Patrick Erhas, who you may remember. He also has Bundesliga experience, most recently with SV Werder Bremen. Colin Kleine-Beckel is sort of the right slant center back. He's a Germany U21 international. Unfortunately, he's been injured quite a bit. I think he's injured now. Timo Becker, who has put the Schalke product, another Schalke product, is having his struggles with injury as well, but he's the designated right wing back while Pukac works the left. Holtby is at the moment running what Rapp is trying to do. He's trying to get Holtby to run the midfield with Gigovic, and Skripski sort of serves as the 10, which is not. I mean, he's a good 10. He really is. Once we get up to the strikers, however, we've got guys that are totally untested at this level. There's this young Austrian lad whom I'd never really heard much about, Benedikt Pichler, Pichler, if you will, who's going to play. And then, I mean, there's a 5 times capped Japanese international, Shuto Mashino. I really wish you could pronounce that Machino, because that would be so cool. Domo arigato, Mr. Machino. But I mean, it'll be interesting to give him a look. But they're just, with the injuries that you have on the right-hand side and the problems that they have in forming a new midfield without Sander, and getting Pukac integrated as quickly as possible, not really having experienced strikers up front. There's a lot left to be desired here. I mean, I'm sure that many of these, we talked about the Bundesliga experience that these guys have, and many of them, they have something to prove. A player like Eras, who hasn't played in the league for quite some time, but he had extensive experience. I mean, Jan Firat Arp, he was once the next big thing for Bayern, so obviously he's got to be going in there with a chip on his shoulder, saying, you know what, I believe that I can compete at this level, and I can show people that. And the same applies to Skripski. Mm-hmm. Also, well, Weiner is both teams have exceptionally strong keepers. Weiner is an excellent keeper. He and Vasilj played all 34 games for St. Pauli last year. So, I mean, one of the joys of the Bundesliga last season was that we got so many surprises, and I don't need to tell a VfB Stuttgart fan that. So you never know what German football has in store for us. I really, here's hoping. Here we raise a glass to what is another season in which a lot of our predictions get proven wrong. Unfortunately, most of the predictions we had about the bottom of the table last year came true, but we were shocked by some of the other things that took place at the top of the table. So you know what? When you do these shows, The biggest hope heading into the football is that you're proven wrong. You don't want to be right. You want to have the egg on your face, because if your predictions don't come true, then that's what it's all about. If your predictions do come true, it's boring as all hell.
Yeah, although Mark will have us remember that he predicted Colm's relegation many, many moons ago. He'll never let us forget that. Brilliant stuff. That's great. Been really fun to talk about St. Pauli and Kiel tonight, and just get to know them a little bit more, get a feel for them. Hopefully that's been really informative for everyone that's watched this evening. Like I said, if you're a Pauli fan, if you're a Kiel fan, comment along. Like, if you've not been watching live, no problem. But if you stumble across the show, share it with your friends, share it with all your pals. Because we want to hear from you. We really want both clubs to do really, really well and enjoy what is going to be a fantastic season. So as always, we'll finish with a bit of typical admin. So from a podcasting point of view, this will also be a podcast. Of course it will. So on all good audio platforms, make sure you leave a rating and a review. For the sake of YouTube, leave a thumbs up. Make sure you comment your thoughts on the two new clubs, how they'll maybe get on. Subscribe and get those notifications on. If you want to follow us on socials, make sure you head over to X, also known as Twitter. Follow Over the Bar FB and Village Footy. We are also on Instagram, so just search Over the Bar or at Over the Bar FB. You should know where you're at with YouTube because you're on there now. But if you need the link, there it is. And then another quick shout out for the giveaway. We're doing it with Bundesliga boxes, the excellent Bundesliga boxes for batch 43. Head over to X, it's the pinned tweet. Follow all the entry criteria, and you could get yourself a fabulous box there. And we have also a little secret link, and that is in the description of the prediction show, which we did last week. So it's on the channel. Click onto it, make sure you find it, and you can get early access as well. So loads of good things going on. We will be back for more pre-season content, potentially later this week or going into next. There's few things that we still want to get done. Of course, we'll have a fantasy draft show. We'll have predictions for the first set of the fixtures, and we might do the odd watch along as well. Of course, we've got the Super Cup coming up. We've got Pokal coming up. It's all going to hit us very, very quickly and very, very soon. We'll be on social media all over the place to make sure that you're aware of what's going on. But all there is left to say is thank you all for watching. Thank you, Peter, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers all.